Hey everybody, today I'm going to show you how to change oil when you don't have a lift, and we're going to start with the basics here. Right now we're going to find the spot underneath the vehicle where we're safe to jack the vehicle from, and if you look here you can see that little lip. That's the body. You're safe there with the jack. You could also grab it on the inside a little further in under the frame rail if that makes you feel better, but the lip here is fine. It's a good place to grab the car and safely jack it up, okay? So what you want to do is you want to lift this thing up to the point where obviously you could fit underneath it, whether you're going to use a creeper or lay on a piece of cardboard, whatever you feel better with. Once this thing is up in the air, always just double check, make sure that the jack didn't slip. Always be mindful of, safety before anything else. And you got to remember, this thing is a 2,500 to 3,000 pound vehicle that you're going to be laying underneath. The last thing you want is for it to fall on you. So we're going to use a jack stand. All right. I see a lot of guys over the years that crawl underneath the car with a jack. Do not ever trust a hydraulic jack to support the weight of that vehicle with your body under it, ever, or any part of your body under it. Another thing is, if you notice, I put a piece of wood in the back of the rear tire when I jacked it up, or before I jacked it up. That's to make sure that this thing doesn't have any chance whatsoever of rolling backwards and sliding underneath, sliding the jack out from underneath it. Is it going to happen? No, but do I want to take the risk and say I should have done this? No, I don't. So now I'm showing you this video for safety and I guess as an instructional, but I want you guys to understand it's both, okay? Be safe, not sorry, alright? So now we're going to get our tools together. We need a drain pan, and we're going to need a couple of other things here. We're going to need a ratchet, or you could use a wrench if you feel better, or if you don't have a ratchet available or whatever. Set of wrenches, whatever size you need for your particular make and model. This happens to be a 2013 Transit Connect. I believe it's a 13mm socket that you need a wrench. You're going to need a creeper or something to lie on, and then you're going to also need a oil filter pliers or what have you. I'm selecting a pair of oil filter pliers here in this video. Oh yeah, don't forget a drop light or some sort of light for underneath the vehicle so you can actually see what you're doing. And as you can see here, that yellow piece there is my filter. Let me see if I could get a better shot here, better lighting. You're going to position the drain pan underneath our oil pan. And remember something: if you're doing this hot, when you take this plug out right here, the oil that comes out is going to be very hot, so be careful of that. You don't want to get it on you; it's going to hurt. If you're doing it cold, you don't really have much to worry about, obviously. Now the filter will be the second thing we're going to take off. We're going to take the drain plug out first. If you're using a ratchet, obviously make sure you're loosening and not tightening. I know this sounds really stupid, but I have seen people going the wrong way with a ratchet and break the drain pan, because it is made out of aluminum. The oil pan, rather, I'm sorry. They are made out of aluminum on these vehicles and a lot of the newer stuff. So don't do that. Make sure your ratchet's going in the right direction. Give it a tap, break it loose, and once they're broken loose, unless you have a problem with the threads on the oil pan or the bolt, these things would come out very easily by hand. Okay, you can just take them out with your fingers. I like to hold a little bit of pressure towards the oil pan while I'm unbolting these things at the end, because I want to be able to get my hand out of the way like that and just let it drain. See, there's like a little bit of buildup here. We're going to wipe that off the threads, and some of these bolts are magnetized to pick up any debris. So before you put them back in, it's good practice to get yourself a clean rag even a little brake cleaner, clean them off. Now the other thing is you want to inspect the seal on these drain plugs. This plug particularly here uses a O-ring type seal, and the truck has very, very low mileage on it. The seal is in fine condition to reuse. Some places they don't recommend ever reusing a drain plug. I'm going to tell you that that's a lot of bull. I've changed the oil in my own vehicles for years on end, and used the same drain plug and never had an oil leak. So usually that comes from you usually get a problem when you over tighten them or cross thread them or whatever. But you're not going to get you should never have a sealing problem with these things unless you have extreme age or something else that's causing it. If you feel better changing the drain plug, they are readily available. You can buy them from the Ford or from a local parts store, so whatever makes you happy. There's no need to change these things on a daily basis though. So basically what you're going to do now is you're just going to wait for that oil to drain, and you're never going to get all of it out of the pan, okay? So you can let it sit there for a little while until you get most of it out, and while you're doing that, it's good practice to look around, check the axle boots, check the hoses for the brakes, whatever you could see underneath this car. Check around for leaks. Look at the bottom of the radiator for any kind of hints of impending leaks or damage or anything like that. And just take a good visual inspection underneath the vehicle. Look around a little bit. Visual inspections are key to keeping things in check. So now once you're done with your visual inspection, the oil's drained sufficiently, you can put your plug back in, screw it in by hand. Don't run these things in with an air ratchet, guys, or a impact gun. And yeah, I've seen that too. Put them in by hand, get your ratchet, of course after you clean the mess you just made off your hand, and tighten them down. Like I said, these things use an O-ring, so you don't have to kill them. And they are an aluminum pan, so you can crack it if you over tighten it. Tighten it down till it's snug and stop. Okay, that's all you need. You wipe off the excess. Later on we're going to clean this off with a little brake cleaner and make everything pretty again. Not that this particular truck is that pretty underneath. It looks like it's been going off-roading. But we're going to move on to the filter. Okay, grab your wrench or whatever you choose to use to take the filter off. And these things should not be impossible to get off unless somebody put them on wrong. And that's another reason I'm doing this video, because I get too many of them in here that do not come off easy. See, this came off or loosened up very easy. You grab it on the bottom. There's an area there for the wrench to grab. Spin it off by hand. Let it drain. Very simple. Okay, so now that we got our new oil filter and we got our oil, what I like to do, this is not something you have to do. Obviously make sure first that you have the right filter for the vehicle. Okay, verify that the number's correct. Check the O-ring seal. Now, get your oil, open one of the quarts and pour it into the top of the filter. This works well on filters of this type that go straight up in the mounting area. Okay, does not work so well on cars like Toyotas where they're mounted upside down. Don't try it on them. Once you fill the filter up or get some oil in there to prime it, which I like to do, it's not necessary but I like to do it, it makes me feel better. Put a little bit of that oil on your finger and put it around the top seal on the filter. This helps to keep this filter sealed up nice. It keeps the rubber preserved, and basically it makes it easier getting it off later. So now take the old filter, pour out the remnants, check to make sure the O-ring came off, guys. Very important. Those seals have a habit of sticking to the top of the mounting area, the plate, or with the oil filter housing, whatever you want to call it. And when you don't see that and you put a new filter on top of it, I don't care how tight you make it, it's going to leak. And it's going to leak quick as soon as you start the vehicle. And you're going to have 5 or 6 or 8 quarts of oil all over the floor. And you're going to have engine damage in no time. So this is an all-around no-no, okay? Make sure you take the seal off. Now, screw the filter on by hand. Okay, by hand, guys, not a wrench, not anything else, by hand. Make sure that it's dried off enough, you know, it's clean of oil or whatever, that you can grip it and tighten it by hand. Any grown-up male or female can tighten an oil filter with no problem. Okay, man or woman, you can do it with no wrench and get it tight enough to where you're not going to have a leak. You don't need a wrench to put these on. It's frowned upon by guys like me that do this for a living, because we can't get them off after they've been on there and tightened down with a wrench. Okay, so now that we've got that covered, no wrenches to put an oil filter on. Now, we're going to crawl back under this thing and we're going to clean off the filter using one of my favorite things, brake cleaner. Clean the filter, clean the housing, clean any drips, any drabs, anything that you have that's left over. Make it nice and neat. And we do this for a variety of reasons. The main one being that when the customer goes home and leaves the vehicle parked in his nice clean garage and comes out in the morning and sees oil drained out on the drip down on the nice concrete, it doesn't go well. They get angry. Okay, I don't blame them. If it has an oil leak, it has an oil leak. This thing doesn't, and a lot of vehicles that I have in the shop don't, so I make sure they're clean underneath when they leave my shop. It's good practice, okay? And you don't make the customer nervous when they do see something dripping that they think they have a leak that's not actually there. So now, after everything is clean and everybody's happy, you are going to go up to the top of the vehicle and we're going to take a look at, if I could focus in here, maybe, yeah, that'll work. Okay, we're going to take off the fill cap for the oil. Usually these things are marked, and it shows you right on this one. It takes 5W20, which we're going to use. 5W20. We're going to find ourselves a sufficient funnel, because I really don't like pouring oil into the valve cover without it. I'm pretty good at it, but you know, it usually just ends up with another mess that I have to clean up. So I'm going to use a funnel. Do things the right way. There you go. So now you just pour your oil in. This particular engine takes 5 quarts with the filter. So that's what we're going to pour in here. We're going to pour 5 quarts of brand new 5W20 motor oil in. Yeah, we do things the old-fashioned way. We don't use any pumps or anything. We actually have quarts of oil here. You know what you're getting. You could actually read the label. Remember, guys, anybody could do this at home if you have a couple of tools and feel inclined to get a little dirty. There's no reason anybody can't do this at their house. You don't need a lift. Now, go back underneath, inspect for any obvious leaks. If you left something loose, now you're going to know, okay, like the drain plug. That's why we tighten the drain plug back up. As soon as the oil drains, we put that back in. Do not put it in just hand tight. Tighten it That way it's done and you can forget about it at that point. You put your oil cap back on. And then you have your partner come over, take the waste oil, and get rid of that for you. Thanks, Erasmo. Appreciate it. Now's a good time also, while you're back, when you're under the hood here, it's a good time to go over everything else and look around. But when you let this thing down, let the jack down nice and easy. Don't drop it, alright? Go nice and easy. You can now look, you can check your fluids, check over everything, which we're going to check the oil now before we start it. And we're going to just take a look and see where we're at on the stick. You wipe the stick off when you initially pull it out, put it back in, pull it back out. Anyway, take a look at the, there you go, okay? You're right above the level mark. Don't forget we did fill the filter up before we put it on, so we should be close. Wipe off the mess you just made, and now you can start the vehicle up. Make sure that no noises, there's no leaks, and once you do that, after you start this thing, let it run for 30 seconds, a minute, whatever you're going to do. You're going to get back out, you're going to shut it off, you're going to get back out, you're going to go back under the hood, and you're going to recheck the oil level once again and check for leaks once again. If you have any problems, you want it to happen before you're settled and you take this car out. Okay, not that you're expecting to have problems, but always double check everything. This is how you prevent things from happening that are really bad. So again, you pull the stick and wipe it off first. You don't take the initial reading. You put it back in, take it back out, and then take your reading, and you're at the full mark, you're good to go. Now that you know everything is good with this car, with the oil change, you can put a sticker in the window and have your, mark your mileage and your time, if you keep a book, log, whatever you do. I had to check tire pressures on this thing. It was about 12 pounds of pressure on the one side, so I had to put air in the tire and get it back on the road. But the thing that I want to go over here is when you're under the hood on this thing, look around. You change the oil in the car, that's great, that's fine and dandy. You got fresh oil in it, but take a look around at things. Just nose around, look for antifreeze stains, look for clamps that may have loosened up, or these cars today have all kinds of plastic lines running for antifreeze and everything. Look around and make sure nothing is cracked or nothing is in a bad spot or out of its holders. Vibration and stuff, hitting bumps knocks things around. Look for anything that you may see. This is the time to do it. You're under the hood changing oil. You want to check the vehicle over, because if you do have anything else that catches your eye, you want to address it before it becomes a major problem.